Alright, how's it going, y'all? Today we're talking about how to avoid getting your NAS cryptoed. Basically, how to avoid getting ransomware, where basically an attacker comes in, encrypts all of your files, and says, hey, you've got to send me $300 worth of Bitcoin to decrypt your files. This is a really common attack, and it's been happening more and more often recently. You basically get a note in your file system that says, hey, your NAS has been encrypted. If you want to get your data back, send me this money at this Bitcoin using Tor. And this is something, unfortunately, that nobody's been able to decrypt. That's the problem with encryption. It's really good. It is really easy to encrypt a file, and if you don't have the decryption key, you're not going to be able to decrypt that file unless you've got some very special circumstances, like what we're going to talk about today with DSM. So this tutorial is going to be done in DSM 7, but this will work exactly the same in DSM 6. And so now let's talk about the basically two different ways that your NAS is at risk. There's direct attacks and indirect attacks. A direct attack is basically somebody directly attacking your NAS, meaning they are searching the port 5000 on your router and being able to log in like that, or finding other vulnerabilities directly on your NAS. The second and most common method of attack is actually an indirect attack. Basically, all the attacker has to do is get a computer on the network that is mounted in SMB share or any other share of the Synology NAS to get that infected. They then use that infected computer to encrypt every single file system they can find that's mounted. Basically, this is the easiest way for attackers to do this. Getting a virus on a computer is so much easier than getting a virus on a NAS because you're not running executable software, for the most part, on your Synology NAS. 99% of users are only going to be installing the Synology approved package center. And so there's very low risk of attack there, though there is always risk of somebody brute forcing your way into your NAS. But the really easy thing for an attacker to do is get you to run an executable. That executable then has the ability to start encrypting files all over your computer that are not basically locked down. And so this is a really easy method for attackers to use because it's just so ubiquitous. All they have to do is get the software on one computer in the network, and they can spread it however they'd like to and encrypt any network shares that this has access to. The good news is, while it is the most common, it is also the easiest to defeat with Synology NAS. We're going to talk about that in a minute here. As for the direct attack, we're not going to be talking about that as much in this video. Really, we're going to be focusing on that indirect attack, which is the most common, but I've already covered how to protect yourself from a direct attack, mostly with my Synology security video. That's all about locking down your ports, only opening up applications that you really need, and also having a good strong password with two-factor authentication. Then if you follow those steps in the security video, and I'll go ahead and leave a link to that in the description below, you should be pretty well protected from a direct attack. I'm not going to say it's perfect because nothing in computer security is ever perfect. However, you're going to be very protected, and I would not worry too much about a direct attack. Alright, so now we're going to talk about how we can pretty easily set up Synology to really protect ourselves from those indirect attacks. That's where a computer starts encrypting a bunch of files on the network via a network share. And you can protect yourself really well using Synology BTRFS and also making sure you have a separate admin account. So first off, let's talk about the admin account. Most users of Synology simply have one account. It's always an admin account, and they're always using it for whatever they do. For SMB or whatever, they're always just connecting with that admin account. This means that if that account gets compromised, that account and whoever's compromised it will have total access over your NAS. They can delete all your backups. They can do anything they want to like that, assuming they're able to go into an internet browser and start attacking it like that. It is a little bit more difficult than just spidering through a network and finding any network shares and encrypting that, but they could pretty easily if they had those login credentials. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up a separate admin account, and then we're only ever going to log into your NAS whenever you need to do something admin related with that admin account. You're never going to use SMB for it. You're only ever going to connect with SMB over your regular user account. And then when you need that permission upgrade for like configuring settings, all those wonderful things you're watching my tutorials for, you'll log in with that admin account. And this way, the admin account is going to be a lot less likely to get compromised. And the second thing we're going to do is we're really going to leverage the power of BTRFS and BTRFS snapshots. Unfortunately, this does require your volume to support BTRFS, and your primary volume has to be BTRFS. It cannot be ext4. So if you've got that set up, you're either going to have to rebuild or just not be able to do this. Though you could do a similar thing using hyper backup and constantly have backups. You should be backing up your NAS anyway. But I know a lot of people just don't have backups, and so that's why ransomware attacks are so effective, is because it's their only source of the data. All right, so basically what we're going to do with our BTRFS snapshots is we are going to have snapshots taken every hour or something like that, and these are very thin snapshots, so it's really not going to increase our storage that much. Then we'll keep the snapshots for 30 or 90 days depending on what you want to do, and then they'll be deleted. And so the only thing about that is any files you delete off the NAS, you will not get that storage back for at least another 30 or 90 days depending on what you set up. Though if you are doing a big old clean out and you know your data is all secure, what you can do is you can basically go, okay, I've cleaned out my NAS, I want that storage back. I'm now just going to empty out all those old snapshots, and so you'll get your storage immediately back doing that. But it is a bit more of a manual process, though the rest of this will be completely automated, and so you'll forget about it until the day you get cryptoed, and then you'll remember, oh yeah, I set something up about that. All right, so now that we've had that overview of what we're going to be doing, let's go ahead and start it up. And so right now I'm going to go ahead and log into DSM. Currently I'm on DSM 7, but that's okay. This will work exactly the same in DSM 6 as long as you've got BTRFS snapshots. And this is basically a brand new NAS. As you can see, I'm logging in with the account Will, and I'm just going to enter the password. And we're just going to go into control panel and go into user and groups. So right now you can see that there are 3 accounts and only one of them is real. The guest account and the admin account are disabled. You want to make sure both of these are disabled unless you really need a guest, but you should not ever enable this admin account. And then there's finally this real account, which is Will, which is the admin and the only account on this system. And so this is probably what your setup looks like. Almost everybody just has one account and it's admin. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to create a second admin account, and we're going to remove the admin privileges from this current account. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into create, and we'll create a admin account. You can do something like your name _admin for this. Though that username is guessable, I'd say it's still not too much of a thing to worry about. Just make sure your password is strong. And so you're going to want to make sure to have a very strong password here that is different from the password you were already using on the regular account. Otherwise, this is all kind of for naught. And so we've just created this new account, and we're going to go into next, and we're going to set him as an admin. Yada, yada, yada. He'll have permission to anything anyway. And so now we're going to go ahead and log off, and we're going to log into that new admin account. And so we're going to sign in with Will _admin this time. And this way we're going to log in with that admin account we created. And so it's, hey, DSM 7, woo. So this is our new account, and I'll close out all this new stuff. And it is once again an admin account. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into control panel. And what we're actually going to do is we are going to take away the admin privileges from our main account. And under user groups, we're going to remove them from the admin group. And so now this will just be a basic user account. We'll want to go through and edit its permissions really quickly, just to make sure it still has read-write to all the shares you need it to have read-write to. But once you're done with that, you'll have basically set up your normal account that you've been using all the time as just a user account. And so that way you won't be able to configure special services in there, but you'll have to use this admin account for that. But it will be very secure, because even if somebody got that username and password, then they're just going to be able to edit files and things like that, but they will not be able to touch your backups. Those are reserved just for admins. And so now that you've made sure you've got read-write to all the shares you need, we can go ahead and save this. And now we've just downgraded that account to a user account. And so remember, this Will, which is your primary user account, is the one you're going to be logging in all the time with SMB and everything like that. Then this Will admin, or whatever you call it, is going to be your admin account. You should only ever log in over DSM, basically directly into this web interface, and you should never log in with SMB unless you have a very specific reason to. I don't know of any that you would, so I would really not recommend doing that because they have admin privileges then. All right, and so now we've got that more secure admin account, which is great. And so we're still logged in as the admin, so we can start configuring some packages. We're now going to need to go into Package Center, and we're going to need to download Snapshots. And we are going to download Snapshot Replication Services. Yours will not say join beta unless you're also on DSM-7 beta. Once DSM-7 is released, it'll obviously be a release version. And so I'm just going to install Replication Service. And so Snapshot Replication is really the key to how we're going to be doing BTRFS snapshots and really protecting our accounts from anything. It doesn't even have to be a crypto attack. Honestly, it can just be a stupid delete or somebody accidentally corrupting a file, and you'll be able to roll back all those things. It's a really great setup, and the best part of it is that snapshots are ultra thin. That means they're not going to take up that much storage on your NAS, and so you can keep hundreds of them, and it's not going to fill up your drive. They only store the deltas, which is really the power of BTRFS. So now that that's installed, we're going to go ahead and open it. And so now what we can do is we can start setting up snapshots. So to do that, we're going to go into Snapshots, and we're going to select each storage volume. Currently, I only have this one shared folder, so I'm going to select it and click Settings. And I'm going to enable a snapshot schedule. You've got a ton of different options here. So you can say run daily, weekends, weekdays. I'd recommend daily. And then frequency, we'll run this every hour. And so it'll basically run a snapshot every hour from midnight to 11. So basically every hour it'll take a snapshot. And then for retention, what we'll do is we'll enable a retention policy. And what we'll do is we'll have an advanced retention policy. And we'll set some rules here real quick. So we'll say we'll keep all snapshots for 1 day. That's just good. You'll have 24 snapshots. Keep the latest snapshot of the hour for 24 hours. We don't need that. Keep the latest snapshot of the day for 7 days. You're definitely going to want that. And then keep the latest snapshot of the week for 2 weeks. That's not too bad, maybe 4 weeks. And then keep the latest snapshot of the month for, we'll say, 3 months. And then we won't have any yearly snapshots. So basically what this is going to do is it's basically going to do a smart recycle. And so it's going to be deleting certain versions of files so they don't really stack up. For more protection, basically increase these numbers, but it will also mean your data will get larger if you're doing a lot of changes. What this is essentially going to allow us to do is basically for the last 3 months, we'll be able to get all of our data back if somebody cryptoed it. 90 days is actually a pretty good idea because cryptoing data can actually take a really long time. And so you're going to want access to these older files. And so in some ways, maybe even we say we want a weekly version of everything for the past 8 weeks. Because remember, these are pretty thin, and I'd say that's even more secure. It might take some digging to go through and find out, hey, this is when the file started getting cryptoed. This is a good version of this file, this file, and this file. But the files will be there, which is by far the most important part of all of this. And so you can set this up, you can toggle these values some, but it's really up to you. But I'm happy with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and click OK. And so now under advanced, we don't really have anything that we need. There is the snapshot visible, which can be really nice to have. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, make snapshots visible. This way, you don't have to log into your admin account to see these snapshots. Though if we are really going to make sure that the person cryptoing our NAS doesn't realize we have the ability to have snapshots, we can disable that. I'd still say it's worth it to have that, and so that way you can easily navigate to other snapshots. And if you do all of this correctly, it doesn't matter if they know that snapshots exist on your NAS because they're not going to have the ability to remove them, which is the really important part of all of this. And so now we just click OK, and we're going to say OK. All right, and so now we have snapshots running every hour. And so this is the meat to our entire thing. And I'm gonna show you how this all works. So first off, I'll just take a snapshot really quickly. So now I've just taken a snapshot. But now let's say I'm a bad person and now I want to go through and I'm cryptoing this NAS. Or I'm going to change things. Basically, there are all these great files that he's got. Well, let's go ahead and delete them. Realistically, they'd be in the recycling bin, but hey, we're just gonna say they're deleted, or we can say that they're corrupted or anything like that. Basically, these files no longer exist. This is actually gonna take quite a while because I put 2 terabytes of data in here. Don't know why I needed to give all that data in there, but hey, we got it. And let's even go through and delete them out of the recycling bin. Because we're admin, we can actually do that. And remember, this attack is most likely going to be happening on the SMB share. So it'd be like if I mounted this share on my Mac and was starting to corrupt the files and encrypt the files. That's where this attack is most likely to happen. And so that's where we're going to call it. Also, I am on my admin account right now, so I was able to delete the trash can. But one thing that does not end up in a trash can is a modification of a file. You don't have every single version of a file in the trash can because you changed a word in it. No, it only puts things in the trash can that are deletes. And so that's really why cryptoing a NAS is so powerful, is because it doesn't end up in a recycling bin. It only ends up in this new file, and the only way to get that is to pay them, or sometimes you can recover data if it's just been overwritten to another section of the hard drive, but generally they're pretty good about not letting that happen. All right, and so now this is simulating what would happen if our NAS got cryptoed. Basically, we'd go into main, we'd see that, hey, there's this text file in here that says, read me if you want your files back. And it basically says, hey, if you want your files back, you've got to send me $300 worth of Bitcoin. And then all of your files will end in this .encrypted file format. And so if that were to happen to you, and this is actually one step further, where the files were completely deleted, then you're going to be able to recover it. And there's 2 reasons why you're going to be able to recover it. 1, because we set up BTRFS. And so that means that we're going to have these snapshots. And 2, because of the way that BTRFS snapshots work. A snapshot actually counts towards space. Because it's not really a backup, but really a point in time that everything is stored with deltas afterwards, it doesn't mean that if you start running out of space, it'll start deleting these snapshots. And so there's no way that the adversary could go, okay, well, I'll just fill up the drive, then remove a bunch of stuff, so everything will be overwritten. Instead, what will happen is it will just act like your data is still there. And so if we go into Storage Manager for me right here, we will see that even though I deleted all those files, I still have 1.8 terabytes of data in there. And so if I were to fill those up with those encrypted files, they would take up a lot of space, but the adversary would actually probably run out of storage on your NAS before your entire file system was encrypted, unless of course you had less than half your storage full. And so because they are just a regular user, they're not going to be able to do anything about this. And so what you can do is once you've figured out what computer has caused the virus, all you have to do is go back into snapshots. And so then you can go, okay, hey look, I'm going to recover my snapshot. I'm going to recover this one, and I'm going to restore to the snapshot. And I would highly recommend saying, take a snapshot before restoring, unless you're almost out of data. So what this does is that way you can start going through and finding the deltas of files of like, hey, this is a little too old when he started encrypting, so I want this version of that file that was not encrypted. And so that way you can go back to that point and it won't just delete it. If you do not click this, that snapshot will just be gone forever. And so all the encrypted files will be gone together, but also some of that history might be gone too. So I would just be really slow and really careful and methodical when you are restoring from this, but your data is there, and that is the most important part. And so we're just going to click OK. You can see that there is now this new snapshot. And if we go back to my file system now and do a little refresh, it's just like nothing ever happened. All of my files are back now, and so we are good. And so this is the perfect solution to those indirect attacks where somebody is encrypting your data and forcing you to pay them money, because what you can do is you can just go back and roll back to any single version of a file. This is not just good for ransomware, it's also great for just stupid errors you make. Say you didn't like an edit of a photo you put up, but you've only got this new version of it. Well, what you can do is you can go, hey, I've got snapshots. I'll go back 2 hours ago. Oh, that's what that file looked like. And just restore it in line like that. You can actually go through with replication, and with recovery, you can select one, and under action, you can clone with a new name. You can literally just create a new shared folder and basically have two different shared folders that are the same folder, is just from different times. And so now if we go back to the file station, boom, it's just like that, and so you don't even have to delete the first folder. Honestly, I am incredibly impressed by how great Snapshots are, and this is exactly how you can defeat an indirect ransomware attack. Alright, well that's going to be it for this tutorial. I really hope this was helpful, and stay safe out there. I would really highly recommend watching my security video as well, because this is only half the battle. Maybe a little bit more than that because it is the most common attack method, but there's so many other things like which ports do you open up, how strong your passwords are, and two-factor authentication that can really bring you the last little bit to really give you a very secure NAS. It's incredibly important because you're putting very important data on your NAS. Also, Snapshots are not a backup, RAID is not a backup, the only backup is a backup. Alright, well that's it. Have a good one. Bye!